The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And I'm going to fix the monitor. Live TV. I'm gone.
Oh,
I've disappeared.
I find that hard to believe. But
Probably much to the happiness of some of our,
much to the chagrin of many people.
well, not to the chagrin. Ah! She is alive. Now I can see exactly what's showing on the screen. So.
Okay.
Well, the
misstatement of the city was yesterday.
state of the city, well, you know, I mean, the state of the city is kind of like the state of government and the state of everything. It's like Radio Pravda, but that everybody watched the speech, and remember, Fall River's days are right before our very eyes, except if you make less than maybe $80,000 a year. I mean, I don't know what alternate universe. We keep talking about a tale of two cities, but obviously the turnout wasn't that great. He stacked the audience with all his hired lackeys and his political allies,
And the chamber was still empty.
and it was still half empty, and a lot of people sat there with their hands. But you know, I'm looking at this article in the Herald News, and it says, turning to former administrations, Correa said that the city has been bruised by poor planning and fiscal instability. Then the quote, government has swelled and new fees were necessary to keep services. Well, I hate to tell you this, Jazel, but you're the worst sweller of all time. If anybody ever created government swelling, I can't remember a month that's gone by where we haven't looked at a stipend, a new position, or some other, somebody getting a job. So, and your purple bags, I hate to tell you this, you know, you've been promising and promising, you know, you deliver on your promises. Well, guess what? What you're good at is giving the credit to all your people for things that they weren't solely responsible for. And I want to know, as someone who is opposed to the debt exclusion, if we now have $10 million rather than $500,000 projected, why did we need a debt override? Why did we need to override a Proposition 2.5? You know, I mean, this is ridiculous. And look, I understand what he's doing, because in this city, all you got to do is give the elderly people in the high-rises who vote, because they got nothing better to do, you feed them a little bit, they vote for you. They're insulated from what's going on in the city, for the most part, unless they leave the doors and get mugged by the crime. They might be a little interested in that. But the fact is that since most of the voting people have moved to other towns and cities, all you got to do is tie up a whole bunch of people by giving everybody jobs and putting them on committees and boards, and you got enough to get through an election, because the rest of the people sit there and say there's nothing we can do, and they've basically given up. They've given up in an attempt to change, and that's why we're here, to try to build a fire under them to realize. I ran into a woman the other day coming out of a store. Wasn't Bloomingdale's or one of the high-end stores up in New York. I didn't go to Providence or something to go shopping. I was in Fall River, and she said, you know, you don't remember me? I worked with you, years ago on something. And I said, yeah, yeah. And she said, I don't know what's wrong with these people. She said, are they that stupid that they voted for this debt exclusion? She said, nobody's got any money. That's why I'm, you look at people like that, and we run into them all the time. But the problem is they don't comprise enough to get these people out of office. We've got to get the people that don't vote to get out and vote, because, it's just getting worse on every single level of government. This morning, they had an expose. I don't know if it might even started last night, but there's so many of them, talking about how the top 6 people in the Rhode Island legislature handed out all kinds of money to their favorite nonprofits and left other nonprofits, and have been doing it for years. And then they interviewed one of them who gave $250,000 out, all to people who she was connected with. And she just went, no, it's got nothing to do with anything. It's not that I have the power. It's I've been here for 30 years, and I've been doing that, and these people really need the money. Well, they get the money every year. It's kind of like us. We pay taxes to give to the politically connected people in Fall River to renovate buildings that was supposed to be already renovated. If you haven't figured out that government is corrupt and all they do is take care of their friends, you need to have your head examined, and you need to get up and get out, because the only way to fix this is to get them out. Because what we always say is, I want to get everybody else out, but I'll keep my guy, because I can pick up my phone if I have a problem. He might get me a light pole or something like that. It's absurd. Then we listen to this thing, how great the city is financially. $40,000 pay raises, and then you got a bunch of people in the school department who work with special needs kids who make peanuts. They're probably the lowest paid in the state. Yet everybody says how great a job they do, and they're holding up a 3-year contract for $81,000. But they gave Mary Sahadi and Kathy Ann Vivera $73,500 for 1 year. These people are being held hostage, and they're making peanuts. Then we got people in City Hall making less than $35,000 or less, and they've been working there 20 or 30 years. But we got new hires that come in and get $10,000, $20,000 pay raises, stipends. And then he talks about swelling government. He talks about how great we're doing. We're doing great with $10 million. You know what that means? We overtaxed $10 million. That's what it means. Purple bags, BS. I drove the other day past a house that it was a 3-decker. They had two green barrels out with about 15 bags, not one of them purple. Then I looked at the 2 recycle bins that were out there. Every single recycle was wrapped in a plastic bag. And how much does it cost us, CJ, when there's a plastic bag mixed in?
$150 a load.
$150, and this thing had 25 plastic bags in there recycled. Did they get ticketed? No, because I see those barrels that way every single week. The purple bags have been a dismal failure, but now they're being used as a political vehicle. He's promising again to get rid of the purple bags, in spite of the fact that he supported them. But let's forget about the fact that he supported them. How long has he been promising to get rid of the purple bags? The budget before last? This budget? And now he's still looking for a way. If that's the kind of responsiveness you like for your government, keep staying home. Because if you don't like what's going on, and you realize that we're never ever going to see a year that we don't get taxed and we don't see fee increases unless we drain the swamp, by all means, get up, get out, and vote next November.
Kind of clear, yeah. I think.
There's not much more you can say about the thing, And then I like their article about Mayor Alyssa's positive grades. Look who they interviewed.
Yeah, but the thing is he talks about in his speech about how Fall River has this negativity about it that its own people have generated, and he's trying to get beyond that. yet he's one of the most negative people going. Every time somebody disagrees with him, he comes out in force, en masse. Look at the situation between Cal Fiola and him.
Yep.
Look at the situation between him and Ken Fiola.
Yeah.
And he gave a backhanded slap to Froed in his speech.
Of course.
He turned around and he says, oh, and because Froed in its time did good for us, but,
But, yeah, the big but. but the check's in the mail. Yeah, and you're right, CJ, because, listen, this is the old political con. When are people going to, they listen to this crap and they buy it and nobody cares, and they got these other, they got their choir in the background. They got appointed to various boards and commissions, all in the back clapping. Oh, and so one of these firing on all cylinders. Get ready, he's firing. I love to look at Fall River. Well, guess what? We're here. We're not negative. We're here. We're still paying taxes. The thing is that calling a spade is not negative. It's being realistic. You can't solve a problem without being realistic. If you're an alcoholic, you can't ever cure yourself. Well, you're never cured technically, but we're not going to get into that semantic thing. But you can't ever beat that problem or opioid addiction until you admit you have a problem. Fall River's unemployment rate went up to 8%, Mr. Mayor.
That's right.
What the hell are you looking at? Our best days are ahead of us? Well, maybe the best days for everybody who that you can give a job to and a pay raise to, but the other people they're dying with the taxes. No attempt at all to you talk about swelling government. I haven't heard one word about shrinking it.
Yeah, and he talks, and in that he talks about the fact that previous administrations have swelled government, which required increased taxes and fees to support the budget. Yet this guy has maxed out the taxes every year since he's been in office.
And he override for the first time. He
did a Prop 2.5 override. So I mean, what's he talking about? See, this is the problem. This is the problem. This is propaganda.
Yeah.
This is propaganda. And it was clear when you saw the city council chamber half empty yesterday. People who were watching him were sitting there with their arms folded going, again? Really? Again? That's what they looked like.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that's the problem with government. They spin everything to propaganda. See, what they do is they try to stigmatize anything that's against them, and then they justify everything.
Right.
It's like the opioid crisis. Now it's a disease. So now we can throw all the money at it. We can make it's a great position to be in.
And he spoke about the opioid crisis.
Of course he does. Well, but the thing is that it's not negative when you point out the fact that we have a horrible unemployment rate. It just went up 3%. We're not doing enough. How long have we been always at the top or near the top in unemployment? How long have we been a city that can't attract anybody? Our growth rate, according to the United States Census Bureau, is 1/10%. 1/10, not 1%, 1/10%.
Right.
So if if it was $1 on a scale of $1,000, we're 10 cents. That's what we are. That's the percentage. If you want to get it in maybe real terms that you can. We're not. Nobody's coming to this city. The city is dying. You're killing the people. The average income is 34 or 35,000, and the individual income's 22. And you're taxing and all they do is, like you said, Goebbels must be proud. If Goebbels could be resurrected, he would probably walk across the Atlantic Ocean and come to Fall River, because they've taken his propaganda formula and elevated it to even a higher art form, because they've got people convinced. And I don't know who, because everybody I talk to are the ones that are getting killed. But the fact is, as I said, most of the people who vote now in this city, you look at the demographic, it's people who aren't affected. They live in high rises. They don't really suffer any of the problems, or many of the problems, and political hacks, and that creates enough to get in. So hopefully that people will wake up, because I'll tell you what. It is. when you see something like this, and no wonder they were sitting with their arms crossed, because people, people are sick and tired, because most of those people with their arms crossed, they weren't negative, they were realistic. They know that this right before our eyes and the magic wand, we've been hearing this now for 3 years from this guy. Has the city gotten better? No, the unemployment rate went up. Oh, we took care of, we renovated the marketplace. Oh, yeah? Well, I'll tell you what, 10 years from now, let's see how that thing is going. Because remember when Jerry Remy's opened? Oh, Jerry Remy's open. Look, it's going to be a huge magnet. People are going to flock. And we got a big-time business here, a big name, a big local name. And what happened? Jerry Remy bailed out. Was that being negative to say that when it opened? No, it was being realistic. It's like saying at the restaurant that serves $35 steaks in a city where you can go to any Portuguese restaurant and get a steak for $10, is going to survive for long term. It's a chain. They may hang out a little longer, but ultimately they'll sell. How many people have you ever seen? Everybody I've seen that's ever gone to the movies in Fall River has never seen more than 10 or 15 people in the movie. How long is that going to survive? I mean, it's always the promise of things to come. Well, guess what? Fall River is bleeding to death. It's hemorrhaging money. Not hemorrhaging money for them. They're getting it all. They're like vampires sucking all the blood. But the people are dying here. And when people are dying, you need to triage the patients. And you know that, CJ. You're a nurse. I don't have to, you got a PhD in nursing. You're a doctor nurse. so I don't have to tell you that. When you triage the patients, you got to put them in order of who needs the most care immediately. And guess what? We need critical care immediately because the people of Fall River, the majority of people, the people that they don't care about, the invisibles,
the deplorables,
the invisibles, they're dying. And we see them every day. Every place I go, people come up to me and say, when is this going to stop? And I have to be, I'm not negative. Am I negative when I tell them, never? Never. It's never going to stop until you vote these people out and put people in those chairs that their first priority is to control government spending. The answer to them is to spend more money, but they're not spending their money. They're spending our money. And then we get back to, how much is this reality and how much is this propaganda and fabrication? The reality is, he's talking about $10 million projected. Well, why did we need a debt override? Why? Why do you go to meetings and say you can't afford stamps? We got so much money you can't afford stamps.
We can't afford to change light bulbs on the streets.
That's right. We can't afford to put the light bulbs on the street, but we're going to have $10 million. Don't worry about it. It's projected. I'm going to get rid of the purple bags someday. So now, how many times has he promised that and not delivered? He talks about how he delivers on everything. How many budgets ago did he say he was going to get rid of the purple bags? And in reality, they're not replacing that much money, so it's not that big a deal. Because when I drive around a city, I see more people not using purple bags than I do see using them, and none of them have been fined.
Yeah, exactly. And, the thing is, he's in his State of the City address, he called them on things that he already did. The things he talked about in the last State of the City address. I got rid of the $120 a unit fee, but you tacked it on somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now it's tacked on in the form of an override. Because that was $120 a year per unit. Now it's $115.
Yeah.
So we're still getting hit with another fee. And the worst part about, and that's not even a fee, that's a tax. And the worst part about it is he's taking credits for things that didn't start in his administration.
Of course, they all do.
They all do. I was just explaining that earlier today to a couple of people that were in the studio, that the administration that starts it never gets the credit. It's the administration that's in office when it completes. So he's taking credit for Amazon, which he didn't start. He's taking credit for South Coast Marketplace, which he didn't start. He's taking credit for all these things that he didn't start. Somebody else started them. It just happens that they completed or opened during his term. Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? No, it's a misrepresentation.
Yeah, propaganda.
But again, that's what politicians do. And we spoke about that a few shows back, almost a year ago, that a project will start under one administration and end under a different one. And the one that it ends on is the one that walks away with all the credit.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. It really shouldn't be that way. And he didn't credit any of the previous administrations for anything except for swelling government, which is something that he does.
Yeah, true. But, you know, that's the thing. The thing is, look, we go back to Eddie Lambert took credit for fire apparatus that got delivered, but that process was started before he became mayor. They all do that. And like you said, he got rid of the 120, and how many times do we have to tell the people that you don't get rid of things like that? When he got rid of the $120 trash fee, he didn't get rid of anything, because the fact is that the income generated by that and whatever that was funding in the budget is still there. The only way you eliminate something is if you eliminate that fee and then do something to reduce the cost in your budget, whether it's maybe get rid of all these new positions that we never had years ago when we actually had more city employees, like chief of staff and chief in charge of photography and follow me around and take pictures or whatever ridiculous thing you create. But that's, you know, it's economically not correct. You can't eliminate something that you're funding unless you eliminate the cost of what it was funding and eliminate that thing that it's funding. Because in fact, if that's in the budget, if you remove that money from the budget and you still have the same exact services in that budget, there's a hole there, because that funding is just not there anymore. Whatever you paid for, it's like telling yourself, well, I'm going to remove $120 from my budget I'm going to stop buying, I don't know, Tide Pods so I can't have a snack at night. You know, but you can stop buying Tide Pods and think you're going to, and say, I'm projecting $120 savings. But the fact is that if you go out and you have the same cost and you have to buy some other detergent, because unless you stop, then it is a cost-effective thing if you eliminate something like eliminate washing your clothes or eating the Tide Pods. If you decide that you're not going to buy Tide Pods, but now you buy another detergent, the cost is still there. You didn't save anything. It's like when politicians, and I love it, this is one of my favorites with politicians, when they forego the pay raise. I know it was a ridiculously large pay raise. I'm going to forego the pay raise. I'm going to donate it to charity. Terrific. So you get that as a tax deduction that year, and the following year you take the pay raise when everybody forgot. Because everybody thinks that when you say that, you're never going to take the pay raise, which is BS. You're going to donate it to charity this year in this grandiose gesture, claim it on your income tax, or donate it to something and claim it on your income tax. And then you're going to take it the following year. Then it's going to be in your salary. And what people don't realize, if you donate that, it's still in your salary. So it's still going to be in your retirement. And you didn't even lose that year for accounting purposes. So it's 1 year toward your retirement at that salary rate. You know, this is the way politicians manipulate. Just like that politician in Rhode Island was trying to justify her giving all her friends $250,000 and let other needy charities, not put it on a rotational basis, or these people have been getting these grants for decades. 6 people control 90% of the grant money, and it all goes to their friends, and they proved it today. And you know what the Speaker of the House and the Senate President said? Oh, we're going to look into this. Well, what are you going to look into? You're doing it, you clown. But this is government. And until we realize that we cannot leave anybody in office too long, because this is what happens, and only elect people who run on a platform that they're going to worry about the people who can't afford this, it's going to stay the same. And like I told that lady, when is it going to stop? Never, unless we get people, unless we learn to replace people in government.
Well, it's just like when the Charter Commission had the ability to put term limits in.
Yep.
And they chose not to. Not like this charter's been any good ever since it passed. But they didn't even attempt to put term limits in, which they should have. Which they should have. And then there'd be no choice in the matter. It would have to change.
Yeah. And the biggest concept that the people have to get over is not listening. You know, number one, you should never listen to almost anything they say, because if you watch Full Measure, you see government waste $40 billion on a missile defense system that only works 50% of the time. And this is what government does.
Right.
But what you have to do is stop believing that's their con. They don't want to listen. You know, everything that they don't agree with is negativity. It's not negativity. It's not negativity. If you say that something they disagree with, you're negative. No, if you're being realistic, look at what's said. You're not calling it, we're not calling it anybody a name. We're saying that, hey, this is not right. We're pointing out a truth. Is it true that the city of Fall River's unemployment rate went up 3%?
It doubled. It doubled.
Yeah, it went up 3%.
Yeah.
But is that negativity, or is that a fact? It wasn't our facts. We didn't do that. That was reported. It's a fact.
From the
facts aren't negative. Facts are just facts. But when facts get in the way of their agenda, they don't want to talk about them. And anybody who does talk about facts is being negative. It's not being negative, pointing out the fact that people in Fall River fundamentally are poor. That's why we're rated where we are, as the poorest city in the state. We're not making up the stat about what the household income is. CJ and I didn't sit down here before the show and decide what we're going to throw out today for the household income in Fall River. Or what we're going to say is the per capita income in Fall River. When we say stuff like that, we're not being negative. We're just quoting a fact and tying it into the fact that we're saying that these people are not being realistic. This city is not going anywhere. All we've become is a giant employment agency for the mayor.
Right, right. And again, as you were talking about the unemployment rate, we're double the state average. Oh. But we're doing so well. According to the mayor, we're doing so well.
It's right before your eyes, CJ.
Exactly.
We got to clean our glasses because it's right there. We just can't see it.
But the thing that gets me is, I mean, let's talk about that. Travelers Insurance, they've been in Fall River for how long? They've been here since it was Aetna.
Yeah.
Okay, they're leaving. There's more unemployment coming to Fall River. And where are they going? Are they going someplace important? Are they going to Hartford? Are they going to Boston? No, they're going to Bridgewater. Bridgewater. We lost them to Bridgewater.
Yeah, and like you said, Aetna was here years ago. As a matter of fact, the guy in charge of the Aetna office in Fall River was on the Fall River Regional Task Force with me. Great guy, very involved in the community, did a lot of good work on his own, not for personal gain, was very involved in his community. It was sad to see him and his company go. But that's the problem. You know, don't worry, right before our eyes, we're going to have an economic development program, but everything's in the future. So look, if you can't...
It's all stuff that we got to wait to see, You got to stand there with jazz hands. Yay!
Yeah. Hey, and you know, enjoy the snowstorm, everybody.
And remember, the parking ban goes in effect at noon.
At noon.
Have a great day and stay angry. We'll see you Friday.